Los Angeles sits next to the Pacific Ocean, yet millions of people in the city depend on water imported from hundreds of miles away. And after the 2025 Palisades fire exposed weaknesses in emergency water delivery systems, officials quietly admitted something uncomfortable. Even major American cities are no longer guaranteed reliable water. That shouldn't be possible. But the systems that keep cities alive are under growing pressure from population growth, aging infrastructure, and declining water supply. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why even cities surrounded by water are racing against time to avoid running dry. Water's journey from source to tap requires a complex chain of systems working perfectly together. Intake pipes extend hundreds of feet into lakes or rivers, pulling in thousands of gallons per minute. That raw water flows to massive treatment plants where it passes through multiple filtration stages, chemical treatment processes, and quality testing protocols. Then it enters the distribution network, more than 2 million miles of pipes delivering the 39 billion gallons of water used for public consumption every day. Each stage creates a potential failure point. Around 240,000 water main breaks occur annually, disrupting service and wasting treated water. Treatment plants depend on backup power systems, chemical supply chains, and skilled operators working around the clock. Pumping stations must maintain pressure across vast networks, fighting gravity and distance to deliver water to neighborhoods miles from the source. But here's where the system becomes fragile. Water distribution and transmission infrastructure accounts for $421 billion of total future needs, yet the sector's renewal and replacement rate for large capital projects decreased from 3% to 2% over the past decade. The pipes, pumps, and treatment facilities that cities built 50 years ago are reaching their breaking point faster than they can be replaced. When any link in this chain fails, the entire system can cascade into crisis, regardless of how much water sits in the source outside your city. The average age of failing water mains is 50 years, and approximately 33% of water mains in use are over 50 years old. That means a third of America's water infrastructure is already operating beyond its intended lifespan. Around 240,000 water main breaks occur annually, resulting in roughly $2.6 billion in repair and maintenance costs. A main break every 2 minutes on average. The consequences cascade beyond inconvenience. In January 2025, Richmond's water treatment plant lost power, triggering a boil water advisory for several days that affected 230,000 residents across Richmond, Hanover, and Henrico counties. According to the Virginia Department of Health, the crisis was completely avoidable. The plant operated in stripped-down winter mode, relying on a single power feed with failed backup systems. In May, clogged filters at the same plant triggered another boil advisory. In Los Angeles, the 2025 Palisades fire exposed a different vulnerability. Fire hydrant tanks and pipes designed for spot urban fires couldn't sustain the high-volume firefighting required. Some hydrants ran dry when they were critically needed. These aren't isolated incidents. In 2025, Richmond, Atlanta, Mathis, Texas, Los Angeles, and Jackson, Mississippi, all struggled with safe, reliable water access. Over 60% of utilities report that their systems are operating well beyond their intended lifespan. Just under half of water utilities are currently funding asset renewal and rehabilitation, according to the 2026 American Water Works Association report. Given that much of America's water infrastructure is aging, this relatively low number is concerning. The system isn't just aging, and it's deteriorating faster than it can be replaced, leaving cities vulnerable to cascading failures regardless of their water sources. Given what we just covered about Richmond's water treatment plant operating in winter mode with failed backup systems, which scenario worries you more? A plant running stripped down during known weather events, or aging pipes that break every 2 minutes nationwide? Comment your answer below. Now let's look at how these infrastructure failures create a domino effect that reaches far beyond individual cities. Treatment plants hit hard capacity limits that can't be solved by simply turning up the flow. When a treatment facility reaches its design capacity, it can't process more water without violating safety standards, even if abundant source water sits outside the city. North Carolina's wastewater systems illustrate this bottleneck. The state finalized new capacity standards in late 2025 based on actual flow rates, forcing municipalities to expand treatment plant capacity before hitting operational limits. The Northeast Brunswick Regional Plant operates at roughly 60% capacity, while the West Brunswick Regional Plant tracks at 80%, levels that trigger permit freezes for new development under the new rules. These aren't arbitrary thresholds, they're safety margins that prevent system failure. Greenville, North Carolina provides a concrete example. Their water treatment plant faced new demand records, an average day demand of 12.9 million gallons per day and a peak day record of nearly 17.8 million gallons, approximately 80% of their plant's rated capacity. At that threshold, they're already planning expansion, not because their lake is drying up, but because the plant physically cannot treat more water per day. When treatment capacity maxes out, cities face an impossible choice: restrict water usage or risk system failure. The source might be abundant, but if your treatment plant can only process 20 million gallons per day, that becomes your city's hard limit, regardless of how much water sits in the reservoir outside. Addressing U.S. drinking water infrastructure needs will require $2.1 to $2.4 trillion over the next 25 years. Current capital spending by drinking water utilities averages about $33.6 billion per year, while the annual investment needed to meet projected requirements is approximately $90.2 billion, leaving an annual funding gap of roughly $56.6 billion. That's a 168% increase in capital investment just to close it. That funding gap forces cities into an impossible choice. If communities rely exclusively on revenue from water bills to close the gap, average annual household drinking water bills would rise from $429 in 2025 to $969 by 2050, more than doubling in real terms. If the funding gap is addressed entirely through increases in household water rates, an estimated 30.4 million households would spend more than 2.5% of their income on drinking water. So many cities are choosing managed decline over investment. Just under half of water utilities are currently funding asset renewal and rehabilitation. The American Water Works Association notes, given that much of America's water infrastructure is aging, this relatively low number is concerning. Across the board, deferred maintenance, underinvestment, outdated infrastructure, and leadership gaps continue to plague water systems. The consequences of deferred maintenance compound quickly. Richmond's power failure and boil water advisory were avoidable, according to state health officials, if the city had invested in backup systems sooner. Federal reviewers warn of rising disruptions from extreme weather, resource constraints, and deferred maintenance. When cities delay repairs to save money today, they're gambling that aging systems won't fail catastrophically tomorrow. The longer cities wait to invest, the more expensive repairs become, making the funding gap even harder to close. The pattern of infrastructure collapse has accelerated across American cities. As of early 2026, many American cities face critical threats to their municipal water supplies due to a combination of overdrawn aquifers, shrinking reservoirs, and aging infrastructure. The cities most at risk aren't necessarily those in traditional drought zones. They're places where population growth has outpaced infrastructure investment, creating dangerous gaps between demand and delivery capacity. Phoenix faces rapid population growth and heavy reliance on the Colorado River, which is facing record low supply levels. Las Vegas is highly dependent on Lake Mead, which has hovered near dead pool levels where water can no longer flow downstream. Los Angeles relies on water imported from hundreds of miles away. Recent wildfires have also exposed weaknesses in emergency water flow capacity, but the crisis extends beyond the Southwest. Atlanta is struggling with aging, century-old pipes that suffer frequent major breaks, leading to multiple citywide states of emergency. Chicago, despite its proximity to Lake Michigan, faces significant water loss due to aging infrastructure and stressed inland aquifers. New York City faces massive demand and future climate pressure, combined with subsidence, sinking land, that strain its massive tunnel delivery system. The timeline for system failure is measurable. The United States requires $3.4 trillion in water infrastructure investment over the next 20 years, coinciding with the sunset of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act's $8 billion annual investment in September of this year. Without that investment, cities are choosing managed decline over modernization. When infrastructure fails faster than it can be replaced, Proximity to water becomes irrelevant. The delivery system itself becomes the bottleneck that determines whether your city has water tomorrow. Subscribe for more infrastructure breakdowns. Next, the power grid is on the same timeline, aging faster than it can be replaced.